To say that public health problems are complex is probably a bit of an understatement. It's not just a bit of an understatement, it's a huge understatement. So we know that the solutions for a lot of the public health problems facing our communities, our nation, our world, are really going to be rooted in solutions that are developed through interdisciplinary teams, interprofessional practice, working together with the communities, and that's going to require the use of a variety of different research methods. And there are qualitative methods and there are quantitative methods. There's also the combination of those called mixed method approaches. So we're going to focus a little bit on the qualitative aspect because many folks sometimes in some of the traditional physical and life sciences may never had a lot of exposure to it. So what is qualitative research? And this is a pretty generic definition here, but it works. So qualitative research is an inquiry process, so it's research, it's inquiry, where the researcher is going to take this information to build a complex model or holistic picture of what's going on, and that's going to happen through analyzing words, and I would take it further than that. It could be analyzing photographs and images, and this is all going to happen through detailed views or reports from informants, people that have experienced whatever this problem or issue is, or they've seen it. And this is going to be conducted in a natural setting. So the text for that is from Creswell's textbook there, and I lifted this from Columbia University's New York City Public Health Training Center. There's a training on CDC Train. I gathered a lot of information from here. Train is a kind of a workforce development tool or a way for people to get CEUs for their various professions. So there's one on qualitative research on Train. Now, gathering some quotes from the web to get us started with, there's a quote here that says, all research ultimately has a qualitative grounding. Now, I don't know who this Donald Campbell is. He may be a great scientist or researcher, but I agree with this. All research ultimately has a qualitative grounding. And this other person, I also sort of agree with them too, is that there is no such thing as qualitative data. Everything can be either a 1 or a 0. But I'll say trying to make everything a 1 or a 0 is really challenging, kind of making everything a dichotomous key for the world. That's complex, to say the least. And to kind of make a plug for the mixed methods kind of designs that are out there, stories, they give life to data, and data gives authority to stories. But when we talk about data here, a lot of people, when they hear data, we think numerical, quantitative, 0 and 1, or something continuous like a number. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more here in a second. So this is from Dr. Dijak, and this is the National Environmental Health Association. They had a just-in-time transcript issued not too long ago where there's some discussion about COVID-19 communications and all that. So the narrator tells Dr. Dijak, so I'd like to ask you about data. Everyone in public health is talking about the importance of data, yet you seem to be de-emphasizing its importance. Can you explain? And I'm going to put in this caveat that they're again talking about data in a way here that we're thinking about data from a numerical, standpoint. Dr. Dijak's comment is the first to avoid getting the pink slip from NEHA's board of directors, that's his boss. Data are important. Data to an environmental health professional is like the fuel for the Lamborghini. We need data to make informed decisions. We need data to support our stories. We need data for empirical and economic arguments. We need data to protect the public's health. It's what we're taught in school. Having said that, history is replete with examples where data alone has been ineffective in protecting and promoting public health. So Dr. Dijak is saying that. He's a certified industrial hygienist by training. He's saying this with data, really talking mostly about numbers, t-tests, like linear regression analysis and all that. He goes on further to say, let me give you some examples. This is of where we've got enough data. People's vaccine hesitancy, raw milk, lead exposure. We have all the data we need on these. And while we have achieved strategic victories in these battles, the war rages on. And I'm already seeing Americans marching against the potential COVID-19 vaccine. It's unbelievable. I believe I've made my case. Our profession should familiarize itself with affect heuristics, that it's the science of how emotions and not data mold and guide our daily decisions. And from a quantitative data standpoint, there's a lot to be learned by what Dr. Dijak said for communicating out our information. But let's look into this part here. The science of how our emotions and not data will mold and guide our daily decisions. Believe it or not, we can understand or learn through qualitative research, what are we missing? There's reasons why people may have vaccine hesitancy, or why people may choose to drink raw milk even when the quantitative data overwhelmingly may suggest reasons. So what are the reasons why they may not want to do these things or follow the rules? So there's qualitative research to kind of also figure out what that science of how emotions and not currently known numerical data can mold and guide our daily decisions. So there's more qualitative data out there to understand. So let's look at how qualitative inquiry can occur. First, with some more practical examples for our profession and around here. So from a foodborne disease outbreak standpoint, botulism outbreaks are relatively rare in the United States, but for whatever reason, there were a lot of these outbreaks that were in prisons, and they couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and then they did. They figured out they're coming from this stuff called Pruno. It's a home brew that's made in the prisons, and there's all kinds of examples in this article from people making this stuff in like trash bags, but trying to figure out how these outbreaks are happening, how people are making this stuff in prisons, where the greatest risks are at. They did a qualitative inquiry because they couldn't just survey prisoners, because nobody really understood this issue enough to even know which questions to ask in a quantitative framework. So we'll talk more about that here later on. Next, sometimes we have quantitative data already available, and we may have some sort of linear regression model or logistic regression model. And there may be outliers, bright spots on our linear regression model. How do we study those bright spots and ask people from those communities, or ask those communities, like, what's going on there? So qualitative research, by definition, is going to help us build this better model. We're going to conduct this in a natural setting, but we're going to have to get more information from informants, but this is going to be more open answered. And we use qualitative research every day. With contact tracing, qualitative research is in action. Like, we ask patients or cases of COVID-19, like, where have you been? That's an open-ended question. It's not, were you here, were you there? The surveying goes a lot more quickly and easier when you just ask open-ended answers, open-ended questions to get open-ended answers back. So that's just a little bit about the data collection. We're going to get more into it. Who will collect data in a qualitative research design? So qualitative research is going to use these open-ended questions. So the researchers or the interviewers, they're going to have to be as open-minded and respectful, especially on certain topics that might be controversial. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing political science research, public health research, or whatever. The responses people may give you in an open-ended survey might make people who are more reserved uncomfortable. So our responses or interviews are going to be influenced by the interviewer. So we have to know who is going to be doing the survey. If you're asking a woman about certain things, maybe another woman would be better suited for asking those questions. Same thing with men. Certain questions that men would be better to be the interviewers for. May also be with race, or with persons that may be from one population or another. You can think of all kinds of examples where the surveyor who's doing the survey may matter. And then the interviewer also may have to have enough understanding to be able to use critical thinking skills to ask any appropriate open-ended follow-up questions, and do so without coming off in a manner that they may be offensive to the person that they're interviewing. The interviewer has to be aware of their own biography, their own demographics, and their own worldviews and their own mannerisms. So those are important considerations when looking at qualitative data collection, even more so than quantitative. And there are times and places for when we would want to use qualitative research designs. I'm going to pause this video here, and we're going to get into this more on the next video.